leaves show their full beauty and glory just before they die every fall. You know, the saints are kind of like that. You can usually see the full blast of God's glory shining through them at the end of their lives. It's especially true of the martyrs who gave up their lives for the faith. I'm here in Midland, Ontario, where one of my heroes is buried, St. John de Brebeuf. He grew up in France in the 1600s. You know, he had the best of everything, high culture, went to the best universities. He left it all to come and serve the Huron Nation in Canada. Now, Canada's a really beautiful place today. But 400 years ago, it didn't have supermarkets, major cities, central heating, didn't have any of that stuff. And you know what else? It had roving bands of Iroquois determined to kill and torture every single Huron they met and every Frenchman they met. That was the land that John de Brebeuf ventured into alone on a canoe, looking for souls to serve. And when he approached the Huron, he didn't even know how to speak their language. Even after he was welcomed into their culture, though, life didn't get all that much easier. And he wrote home about the difficulties his fellow missionaries would encounter when they came to join his mission. He wrote about how it was almost impossible to sleep because the rodents would be crawling on you. You'd be bitten by fleas all the time. The longhouses were filled with smoke and you could barely see because there was no ventilation. He wrote about a culture where wives were often traded in gambling bets. It wasn't an easy place to be. And yet he didn't look down on them. He didn't judge them. He didn't think of himself better than them. He wrote about the beauty of their culture to his fellow missionaries too, about the generosity of their hearts, about their contemplative spirits, about that how they'd be willing to lay down their lives for one another. And when he wrote to St. Isaac to prepare him for the mission, he said, "You must love these Huron, ransomed by the blood of the Son of God, as brothers." John de Brebeuf's ministry was marked by a superhuman courage. One of his friends wrote about him how nothing could disturb him during the 12 years I knew him. There was one time he arrived at a village and they debated whether or not they should kill him. They made him wait in a wigwam while they deliberated. When they came back to deliver the verdict, they found him taking a nap. Literally, nothing could disturb this man. He and his friends spent endless hours studying Huron culture, studying their language. It's because of them that we have written record of Huron culture and language. And his goal wasn't to crush their culture, but to embrace it so that the light of Jesus Christ could shine through it in its own unrepeatable way. In 1649, a band of 1,000 Iroquois overran a fort where he and his friend, Father Gabriel, now Saint Gabriel, were ministering to the Huron. The Huron begged them to flee because they knew they were all going to be killed, but they refused to. They said, no, I want to stay here and minister to you until the end. They underwent some of the worst tortures of any martyr in the history of the church. St. John was burned, had scalding hot water poured over him. He was stabbed. He had to watch pieces of his skin be filleted off and eaten in front of him. I hate going into that much gory detail, but it gives you a picture of this man's courage, you see, because through all that, he never cursed the people who were torturing him. He stood up straight and tall, and all he would say was, "Lord, have mercy." And through it all, he was thinking about his fellow prisoners, the Huron braves who would be tortured as well, and he was thinking about them and encouraging them in their faith. He said, "Bear up with courage under the few torments remaining. The sufferings will end with your lives. The grandeur which follows will never have an end." He lasted 4 hours under that torture, and his friend, St. Gabriel, lasted 16 hours. 7 years after their deaths, a little girl was born into the very tribe that had put them to death. Today, we know her as St. Kateri Tekakwitha, the first canonized Native American. By the time they had died, 7,000 Huron had become Christians. And within a 7-year span, 8 of the Jesuit martyrs would give their lives in a similar way to St. John and St. Gabriel. You know what Jesus showed us on the cross? Souls have a price tag. We don't win souls by standing on top of some ivory tower and calling down to the world and telling them to come up. We don't win converts and convince people to follow Jesus by treating the church like a fortress to keep sinners out and to keep us safe from the world. We do it as Jesus did, by breaking down walls, by reaching out to people to love and serve them, by treating people as brothers and sisters and loving them so sincerely that we don't just love them so that they convert and come to know the Lord, but we love them so much that even if they reject us and our message, we're still their brothers and sisters. That's the kind of witness that won the Huron over 400 years ago. It's the kind of witness the world needs today. Are you in?